All right, thank you everyone. So we'll call us to order real quick. Do I have an approval for last month's meetings, January meeting? Oh, I should do attendance first, my fault. Call to order. We'll do attendance, sorry. Multiple things on my mind this week. Bill Lesage back.
Suzanne Dirksen back.
Sean Lewis, City Manager's Office.
James Horan back.
Jenny Nolan, Budget Manager.
Jason Clifford, Budget Analyst.
Finance Director. Ben Anderson, Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation.
Christina Underhill, Director of Parks, Recreation, Library, and Golf.
Steve Ward, Fashionably Late Council Liaison.
Rita Russell, Council Liaison.
Peter Epple, Budget Advisory Committee.
All right, do I have an approval for the January
Did
movement?
mention or ask Tim?
Oh,
He's
I didn't
online.
even see Tim. Sorry, yes, online.
All right. Yeah, Tim Dodd, City Manager's Office.
Thanks, Tim.
Bill, if I
Oh yeah,
could,
if you want to do it
in
now.
addition to what you just heard, the announcement, but I did want to introduce everybody to our new Finance Director, Kevin Ingalls. Kevin, if you hadn't heard, interviewed, was it last week or the week before? Just last week.
Wow.
And he was the unanimous choice of both our leadership team panel and our finance team panel. Kevin has over 26 years of experience with the city, starting with us as an accountant. He's been finance manager, accounting division leader. Let's see, what else? Lots of different titles within the department. But really just excited to have his impeccable character, his incredible knowledge, skill in the area of finance, and we think that the city will be well served by his leadership. So congratulations, Kevin. And welcome to another meeting to attend. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And welcome. All right. Is it Nevan? Is Nevan good to be here today, Nevan?
I thought he was,
Okay,
but
okay.
I'm not sure if he's going to
So-
attend virtually.
We do, before I go on, we do have a new member joining us. So hopefully we'll.
Oh, he's
there-
here. I just thought, he's really the door.
We'll keep it.
I'll get it.
He's stuck outside. Poor guy.
Open.
Yours were burning.
Suzanne knew where to look. Yes, thank you. Hi, Nevan. Welcome. Do you want to sit here? Because
That's it, there's a little better.
All right. Welcome.
sit next to Suzanne. Welcome.
All right. Maybe we should just do another quick introduction here, just for these committee members, just so you know who everybody is. So I'm Bill Lesage.
Suzanne Dirksen, I'm also a back member.
Sean Lewis, City Manager.
James Horan, I'm on the committee.
Jenny Nolan, Budget Manager.
Tyson Thornburg, Budget and Financial Analyst.
Kevin Ingalls, Director of Finance.
Brad Anderson, Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation.
Christina Underhill, Director of Parks, Recreation, Library, and Golf.
Steve Ward, City Council.
Rita Russell, City Council.
Peter Epple, Budget Advisory Committee.
All right, you all passed the test of doing attendance twice.
Good job.
And online.
Tim Dodd, Deputy City Manager.
So we didn't mess that up. We did it twice and did well.
Everybody has
sample
to
time.
Yeah. Do we have a motion to approve the January meeting notes?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. And a second? Second. Thank you. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. So we will move on. Today is only Parks and Rec, I believe. Other than, and Nevan, you're our alternate member, right? Yes, welcome. So we can certainly talk more offline if you want and get the feel for things, but I think we're ready then.
All right. All right, so again, I'm Christina Underhill, third time introduction, so nobody, Director of Parks, Recreation, Library, and Golf. And a lot of what we do in the department falls under the community well-being section of the strategic plan. And so just outcome area is a city that provides satisfying opportunities for the vitality, enrichment, welfare, and happiness of the community. And so I'll cover a few of the metrics. And then our mission is to bring people together to play, learn, and live well. So everything we do, that's our goal, is provide great spaces and places for our community to gather and get to know your neighbors and friends, hang out, and have some fun. Here's the department structure. So Brad oversees our Parks and Recreation side. I'm over all of it, but primarily oversee golf and Broken T Golf Course and our library. So here's the metrics that we wanted to cover. It's a little small, so I'll read them, but we have physical and mental health. And there's some other areas that we didn't add on this slide, but these are some of the key highlights. Monthly and annual registration for Malley and Inglewood Recreation Center, over 302,000 registrations. Number of unique visits to Pirates Cove, 76,575. We do track where people come from for Pirates Cove, and we do get a lot of tourism at Pirates Cove and also Bellevue Farm and Train as well. And then the tee time utilization rounds played over at Broken T versus the number of rounds you can actually play. So if you had 100 in a day, we're showing that 68% of the rounds are utilized. Weather comes into play and a lot of other factors for the course, but on good weather days, it's very busy over at Broken T. Lifelong learning is another area we cover. So a number of virtual and in-person as well as phone interactions with patrons. This is primarily our library we're tracking this, and over 29,000 interactions. A lot are in person, but our staff do track what questions they get and how they help our patrons, whether if it's a phone call or Ask a Librarian, which is virtual, that's online, or if it's somebody actually in person at the library. A number of outreach events conducted by library staff. Last year we had 240, both for youth and for adult programming. Our youth programming, Miss Kimberly, if you're familiar with our librarians, is very well known in our city, and you can't go anywhere without somebody saying, "Oh, it's Miss Kimberly." So it's pretty nice to have a good face for the library representing in our community. And then the percent of items from circulation and collection that is actually CERT in a monthly basis is between 9.35% and 13%. And it spikes in the summertime. We get a lot of checkouts for our summer reading program, especially in the children's, but we also do teen summer reading as well as adults. It doesn't seem like a high percentage, but when you have over 68,000 items in your library and somebody checks out one book, that percentage doesn't increase very much. But we also have access to a lot of online resources as well, and that's tracked differently. These are actual physical books and items such as DVDs or games that might be checked out. And then community-wide identity, overall participation in citywide events. Over 40,000 people attended our events throughout last year, and we actually use data now. Placer AI is the company that we use, and they use cell phone data. So if you come to an event, it's pinged your cell phone. It knows. It doesn't know a lot about you other than if you're male or female, potentially your income, where you came from, and where you went after our event. So it's a little creepy, but it's the way cell phones work these days, and we're utilizing that data no more. And we track all our parks too. So all our parks have this data. We know Jason Park is one of our popular parks. Bellevue Park is very popular, especially in the summer. We see a huge increase in people coming to the parks. But like 4th of July was really interesting because I don't know how you capture the people coming, the people that sit in their front yards across the street from our parks. It's not captured, but now we capture it through Placer AI and know a better idea of how many people actually attended our event. I think last year we had over 15,000 people just come to 4th of July or were in the area during the fireworks. I did notice driving home that night, a lot of people were parked along Santa Fe. We did not capture them, but they were watching fireworks from Santa Fe.
I used to do that.
Did you? Don't recommend it, that's for safe. And then Homeless Connect event, we do this in the fall. We bring in a lot of different providers, nonprofits, for-profits that can help our unhoused community. We had over 40 providers over at Cushing Park, and it lasted for a few hours, over 135 participants. So people that might be unhoused currently or may fear becoming unhoused, that were able to come to Cushing Park to get the resources they might need and make some of those contacts to help them potentially avoid becoming homeless or getting out of that situation. And then the natural environment. This was completed last year, but we converted 6 acres of broken tee from turf to native grass. Some of the golfers complained about it, but if you hit your ball down the middle of the fairway, you have a good shot at producing a good score versus hitting it into our native grass. It's much harder to get out of. So golfers are definitely adjusting to the conversion, but it's helping with water usage over a broken tee. And also we, in 2022, we completed the project early 23 was, we invested over $1 million on the irrigation on the BAC 9, which was extremely needed for some of the turf preservation that we wanted to do, as well as the conversion from turf to native grasses, as well as just water savings overall. And then lastly, reduction of pesticides used in parks and open spaces. We don't do broad spraying anymore. We definitely don't spray playground areas or anywhere kids might play or dogs may run in our parks. It's more passive spraying. We also use a lot of organic fertilizer in our parks now that we've had a lot of success with, and we'll continue down that path, hopefully for years to come.
May I ask a question about that slide before we move on, or shall I wait?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to understand that 302,000 better.
Oh, for the registration numbers?
Yeah, it seems like a lot for a city of 35,000. So is that people? Is that number of class, people per class per,
Right.
How's that calculated?
So that's the annual registration. So if you have a membership or you sign up for a class, maybe it might be a swim lesson or a fitness class. We have a lot of drop-in programs. So that's where that number, yeah. And we have a lot of people that don't live in the city, but actually utilize both Malley and Inglewood Recreation Center because they might work here, work nearby, and they've been using our rec center for a while.
So if I'm a Premier Passes holder and I take 3 different classes a month that fall into that, under that Premier Pass, and I sign up for swimming lessons.
You're counted as one.
That's it.
Yeah. We
That's
track,
really
these are
impressive.
other numbers we track too as far as participation rates and classes and all of that, but that's overall numbers.
That's really impressive.
How does the Pirates 76,000 compare to previous years?
From last year, it was down just a little bit, but part of that is because it's weather dependent. We didn't have a very good June.
Yeah.
It was a little cool, so that kind of
Yeah.
reduced attendance.
Yeah, that's interesting. It would be interesting to see in future, like too, like starting to see those trends and stuff and see, since it plays into so much of, what we want to do in the future and things like that. So but that is really cool. That is neat to see.
Any other questions on this slide?
I'll take these over here. Brad Anderson, Deputy Director of Parks and Rec. So this is the money that was returned to the fund balance of the Conservation Trust Fund. You see up there as far as commodities. I guess the thing to point out here, a lot of times we'll see the amended budget, and then we also see the amount that is actually utilized, and we were over in a couple areas, especially like the commodities one. We had some unexpected repairs we had to have on the deck at Pirates Cove due to a leak and stuff, so that's where the majority of that came from. We get down to the contractual portion of that one too. The biggest portion that came from, we did purchase a new electric train for Bellevue Park, and the majority of that is actually the down payment that we had to have in October is when that was placed. Then there's other things, the ERC renovation, we're in the middle of a renovation. And so the planning for that one went into that. And then also some of the Pirates Cove maintenance things that we take from the CTF funds. I guess the thing that looks at it is we're trying to get staff now to really earmark a budget figure instead of just knowing what the balance of those funds are. And so we're trying to get geared down to say, hey, we want you to forecast what those expenses are going to be so it won't look as far as lopsided is what it does on here.
And a reminder, CTF, Conservation Trust Fund, is lottery funds.
Right.
So every time you buy a lottery ticket or scratcher and you don't win, thank you for your
Of course, that's going in there, so that's.
Why did we classify the train as professional services and not as capital?
Well, that was another thing we noticed too, when we went through this, this process, and it's just the way they got coded. So we got coded in the wrong spot. It got put into contractual versus capital. So that's what happened.
It's a back end change. We can work with finance,
Yeah.
but you can see capital has enough funding where we
Yeah.
wouldn't be over in contractual.
Yeah, it will end up being a capital asset once we
So fix that at the end.
Okay.
Then the next one is from the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. There was 15,000 earmarked for that one, and we didn't do any expenditures out of that fund itself, so it's just kind of sitting there right now, so it wasn't needed.
What have we budgeted for that 15 grand?
It was in case something came up, is what it was, so we just kind of earmarked $15,000 in that fund, so.
It could be like park design, if we
Yeah.
needed a park design done, we could utilize those funds.
And we did some park design.
We did, but we actually took it out of our open space funds. We have more money in there and had the funding to do so. We'll cover that here in a second.
Great, thanks.
So the next slide here is from the general fund. So this is Parks, Recreation, Library, and Golf, all of the divisions put together. And we did return just over $120,000 from the salaries. We did have a couple of full-time salaries that were vacant for a little bit, and then also part-time and seasonal staff that just, that went unfilled throughout the year. So that's where that savings came into that one. Commodities, we were over a little bit in that one, 37,000. Some of that is the cost of goods that came through. In the commodities, that's what we're talking about, the operating supplies, computer supplies, office supplies, and also repair and maintenance. Probably the majority of that biggest part of that came from repair and maintenance of the different facilities that we had. In the contractual part of it, we returned $66,000. That's Excel Energy, that's the water. So that's what kind of goes into that one. Also trash. Then also capital is what's listed down there is a SURF fund. So that's the vehicles that we have, the various vehicles that we have in the department is where that came into, and we put back $33,000 into that fund.
Is the food for concessions at Pirates Cove classified as commodities?
Yes, it should be under commodities.
So we're actually making a profit on a lot of that.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes. And the next one, Tyson. So this is the Malley Center Trust Fund. You'll see $15,000 and $20,000 in those two accounts. We didn't do any expenditures out of the trust fund. We looked at doing some expenditures for signage, updating the signage at the Malley Center. We held off on that a little bit, so that's going to be a project that's going to be going on this year. So there was nothing expended out of the trust fund this year. Next one. So then this is the Open Space Fund. This is where it comes into play a little bit too on the first three line items, to where we didn't budget like we should have. We know that we never went past the expenditure of the Open Space Fund. So I'm working with staff right now is to make sure that we identify once again, like we did in the CTF funds, that we're properly budgeting into those accounts. So the first one, once again, personnel salary, we were able to add another 0.5 full-time position. We can take up to 20% of money from the Open Space Fund, from Arapahoe County Open Space Fund, and pay staff with that one. So we did a little study and stuff. We figured out that we could get another half-time employee out of that one. So that's where those funds came from. That's why we're a little bit over in that one. With commodities, operating supplies, and irrigation is the one that took a big part of that one this year. But once again, it just came down into putting the right budget figure down there. And then also contractual and professional services with that one. The majority of that came from the Bates Logan Phase 1 after we got into it. When the budgeting all went through in 2022, we got the Phase 1 process to go where that was approved. And so that's where that money got hit there. And then also capital, there were some landscaping ones there, but we did end up returning $928,000 into that fund.
And we receive about $1.2 million from Arapahoe County from the open space, the quarter-cent sales tax annually. And so that goes into this fund, and it's unique because we also use these funds to apply for Arapahoe County's open space grants as well. So to renovate a park, we're utilizing their own funding, the quarter-cent sales tax, to apply for the grant matching, and then we receive funds annually to help with other projects. So it's a nice system, and I don't know where the parks would be if we didn't have this type of funding. And this can only be used in parks, just like conservation trust can be used for our recreation facilities. This one is only for our parks programs and open space.
On the capital, with the return to balance, is that then something that you could use the next year?
Correct, it
Yes,
rolls back
yes,
in.
it rolls
Carry it over, okay.
Yeah, these are a little less concerning, like Bates Logan Phase 1, the way it was categorized in the budget. Yes, we went over, but we had the funding to go over and we knew that. It's just balancing it after the project is completed when we're getting very close right now.
The next one is the golf course fund, which is there, pay adjustments a little bit with pay adjustments that happened. So we're just $78,000 over into that fund. And then also the commodities, we just over $81,000 in that one as well. Just the cost of goods that came up with that one. And then for contractual, returned $62,000, and some of the things that went into that one was the design, and then also a lot of different stumps of trees that were removed, so we removed the stumps. And then with this and also irrigation design and equipment, we still returned $123,000 into that fund also.
And this rolls back into their capital, so that 122,000 that you see left, that doesn't come back to the general fund like the general like Parks and Rec and library. This one stays with the golf course so they can reinvest that funding into capital projects as we move forward.
Do we pay for stump removal often?
No,
Okay,
not that often.
that's why we haven't purchased a stump grinder for in-house use then.
Right, Parks does have one, but I think it was the amount of stumps that needed to be removed.
We contracted.
It was easier to contract it out.
Okay.
And then next slide. So these are the challenges that we face. Number one, we have an aging park system, especially with the playgrounds. So those are things that we have to address. We're looking for a bond issue again this year, and hopefully we'll get some of the irrigation things, taken care of when we get into that one. But we're trying to get all the different parks, up to speed, because it's been quite a few years before we've updated any of the equipment. And then also there's paths and stuff. The city will be going through an ADA study, and we will probably identify some things that are in the parks also that will need to be corrected as well. Then the Inglewood Recreation Center. The Inglewood Recreation Center is 39 years old now, and it's an aging facility. We have done some upgrades to the rec center. Right now, we are in the middle of the front counter being renovated. Also, we're going to add an aquatics area with some offices there as well. It used to be in the old conference room. And then also we're updating the two restrooms that are off of the lobby too, that are just pretty well outdated. So and then there's a lot of other items out there that we have. Equipment is one of the things that we have to continue to replace. We got out of cycle of replacing fitness equipment every few years. So those are things that we have to look into to try to get that up so we can continue to get guests coming into the facility. Pirates Cove is now 21 years old also. It's an aging facility. There has been no upgrade to any of the amenities at Pirates Cove. So those are things that we have to look at. And then also where the circle is, it's kind of hard to see that, but that's a bridge that goes over the Lazy River. We also have a bridge that goes over the Lazy River on the west-hand side. There's a lot of deterioration that's going underneath of that, and there's a couple welds that are broken on the bridges too, so we have to address those to make sure we continue to have a safe facility. And then just other things too is just the UV in Colorado just plays havoc on the painted surfaces of the slides and also of the gel coat on them. So those are things that we have to periodically replace and redo all the time as well. And then Broken Tee Golf Course, same thing, aging facility when you get into the building. This building, I think it was 1981 is when this one opened up. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done on this one. I mean, just the paint alone is starting to delaminate from the wood. So those need to be upgraded too. And then Malley Rec Center opened in 1977. There was one major upgrade that we did double the size of the Malley Recreation Center and opened that up in 1981. But you get into 81 to, what are we in, 2024? That's a few years. So there's problems. There's roof leaking. There's some solar issues up on top of the roof too. So there's a lot of different things that we need to address, and for safety and stuff too for the rec center. So those are the challenges that we're continuing to face because of the age of all those facilities.
So when you do the rec center front desk, are you moving it closer to the door? I mean, that was talked about years ago for safety purposes.
Correct. We looked at that, And one of the studies that we had and what we really wanted to do was take where the entrance is and move that to the south. And what we found out, it was cost prohibitive to do that. So the front counter is going to be moved out more towards the lobby a little bit. So we have a better sight line, being able to see down that hallway that's going down towards the locker rooms, and we'll still be able to see the hallway going down to the classrooms as well. So we just reconfigured. The other problem that we had is when it's cold outside and the doors open, staff freeze. They get really cold and stuff. So that's a challenge that we had with that one. But with the just over $1.2 million that we had with it, we're going to use every bit of that money. So it's changed a little bit, but not what we wanted it to be. But we settled a little bit on it.
Okay, thank you.
So they're temporary desks where they're positioned right now, that will be,
That will be a lobby again.
okay,
Is what it will be, yes.
okay.
We had to do something when we demoed it. We were able to demo it earlier than what we expected. And the nice thing about that is we were able to demo the old front counter when we had our closure, which is the last week of August. So we didn't disrupt, we didn't have to close the facility for guests to come in. And then what happened, we had some permitting issues and everything. So that's what the long delay was. And so here a few weeks ago, we were able to get work going, and now we're going. Now we're happy.
All right, so major accomplishments last year. We actually had a lot. It's like a 6-page document for all divisions, but we're going to highlight a few. We did 4 park renovations. We finished up Jason Park. That was a multi-phase renovation. Baker Park is our first and only currently fully renovated park, from the irrigation system all the way to every amenity in that park is brand new. We were able to save a lot of the trees and landscaping, so that's not all new, but new trees were planted, new boulders added, brand new playground, restroom facility. Centennial Park received a new playground, basketball court, picnic shelter there. And Cushing Park, we installed the fitness court. This happened like 22, 23, but it was completed in 23. So fitness court and a skate park, as well as a new pavilion there and a new restroom too. We received a grant from Arapahoe County for phase 2 at Bates Logan Park, $600,000 for that. The overall renovation is $1.7 million, so we had a nice match we were able to do. But we're going to be installing an accessible, inclusive playground. It'll be the first in our park system. So all abilities, if you're in a wheelchair, able-bodied, whatever it may be, you can utilize that space and play. And that'll be coming online here this year. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a new playground installed. It's very exciting for us. We sold in 2023 discounted coupon books. It happened December timeframe of 2022, but over $230,000 in those coupon books were sold. And like all coupons or gift cards, not all were utilized. And so it came to the end of the year and the phone was ringing off the hook of people wanting to extend their coupon book. It was very clear you couldn't do that. So there are some benefits for profit reasons in doing coupons or gift cards or things of that nature. We replaced over 50 sprinkler heads on the front 9. The front 9's now an old irrigation system. The back 9 has a new irrigation system. Also in the par 3 course and the driving range, which if you've played Broken Tee, you may start noticing some significant changes, because turf areas that maybe weren't growing are going to grow now because of some of the changes made. Some of those sprinkler heads were 10 plus years old, which is quite old for sprinklers. And some were buried. We had to find them. So efficiency should be better. We held 19 special events with over 40,000 attendees. Inglewood Farm and Train at Bellevue Park operated at maximum capacity. It was packed almost every day of the week, Monday through Sunday, at the Farm and Train. Over 66, almost 67,000 visitors visited the park. Over 182,000 was brought in for revenue. We were also awarded the Colorado Lottery Starburst Award for excellence in use of lottery funds for the Pirates Cove play structure. That was a cool project that Brad organized. We wrapped the structure, so people came into the park over the last summer and thought we had a brand new play structure. It looked brand new, but it was the old one underneath. So it'll help extend the life of that play structure for years to come by doing that sort of thing with wrapping it. A Pirates Cove attendance for last year is 76,000. Pirates Cove opened 77 days out of 84 possible days we could. Again, June really played a big part in with the weather. We had over 1,700 learn to swim classes were conducted, including lessons, and our summer swim team we had over at Pirates Cove. And then our summer childcare program hosted over 110 children during a 10-week full-day program. It's a massive increase. We had 82 more participants in past years, so we're growing that program. We actually hired a part-time childcare director. He's amazing, and I think kids will be coming back year after year if we're able to keep him around. The staff were great, and it was a fun program. And then the library increased their culture passes and items in the library of things, so non-traditional items we have. And if you don't have a library card, get a library card, because you can get passes and not memberships. We have the membership, but you get to take it and go to like the Denver Botanic Gardens, the firefighter museum we just got passes to. It's amazing what we've got. The butterfly pavilion was one of the most popular last year, and it's free to you. One thing, if you do check out books in the library, something we added on the receipt for those books is how much money you saved. And we just started that this year. So if you use the library, check that out. It's really cool to see. If you check out a DVD, you saved $19.99. If you got a book that was normally $32, it shows how much you saved in the value of our library. So it's kind of exciting what the library's doing and making some fun changes.
Just Friday night, we were with some neighbor friends who have young children, and they were raving about the Culture Pass.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, and then they can go to a museum if their 4-year-old has a meltdown 30 minutes later, not out $100, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, that is a nice part. And we have state park passes. You get a backpack, it has binoculars, it has maps to the parks you might pick up. So definitely check it out. You can save a lot of money by utilizing our library and doing some cool stuff you wouldn't normally do.
I just want to point out the Farm and Train, which is in District 4, is one of my favorite amenities because of the cost.
Sure.
It's very accessible to just about anyone in the community, and I hear great things about it.
Good.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, we are raising the rate. It's been $2.50 for years now. It's going to be $3, but we are going to offer a punch pass, so you get 10 visits for the price of the $2.50. So if you enjoy going there, get a pass. And then our top 3, we actually put 4 in here because we're really excited about the Bellevue train being replaced to an electric train. It's been gas all along, and now it'll be electric, so we're in the 2024. It's exciting. But the recreation center renovation is really big this year. We want to get that completed before the fall, hopefully. Bates Logan Phase 2 with the new playgrounds, and then a potential bond initiative that'll be around $50 million. Council will see those projects come Monday, March 4th. We'll have options to break that bond down for a $50, $40, or $30 million, depending on the appetite of the community and council and what they want to propose to our residents here. So those are our big projects. We have a lot more little capital projects going on, but those are the
And I don't know if you're gonna get in, especially if it's coming up here with budget season with the bond initiative. Is it generally similar to what last year? And is it, I guess going back to the challenges, I'm trying to remember, but it seemed like it tried to address a number of those items that are on the, the aging infrastructure.
correct. So actually, in the time that we've had since we had to put the bond to rest for a little bit so we could go potentially for it this year during the presidential election, it has to be during a special election, we've actually done more analysis. And so like the recreation center dollar amount stayed somewhat the same, but went up a little bit because we've proposed adding pickleball courts on the north side of the recreation center. It's an old sand volleyball court. It'd be an excellent location for pickleball. We know there's been challenges in other communities with the noise pickleball produces in parks, and that's next to Meadow Gold, and I don't think they'll complain. They're not there when they'd be heavily used. So we'd love to do something like that in the back and kind of spruce up the north side of the rec center so it gets used. As well as the locker rooms. If you utilize our facility, they're aged and kind of, in my opinion, a little gross, even though we clean them thoroughly. It's just, they never look clean. And so modernizing the locker rooms, as well as the proposed project was a surf simulator as well to help attract teens and kind of add in a new amenity that nobody else has in the Front Range. And then also Centennial Park we looked at, there's a unused space on the east side of the park that's just dirt. we're proposing a regional bike park there, something that'd be a destination for people to come into Inglewood and use a bike park that doesn't exist. Ruby Hill is the closest one, and it is closed a lot of the year due to snow, rain, it's dirt, and we're proposing an asphalt bike park that could be utilized. So some of the projects have changed a little bit. We've tweaked them. We've looked at the parks again and made sure, are we really addressing all the needs we need to? And we've checked a lot of boxes. We did, one of the council questions that was asked was, is this going to take care of all your capital needs? And the answer is no, it's not. It'll take care of a big portion of it, but there's probably still an additional $20,000. If we were to go for the $50 million bond, there's probably $20 million remaining between Malley Recreation Center, Inglewood Recreation Center. I mean, they're aging facilities and they're outdated. And so there's some accessible things that we need to do in addition to what we're proposing, as well as the parks. I think there's 11 million identified just in parks that we wouldn't be addressing, but it's something that our parks team is looking at of how do we utilize open space grants and other funds that we have to kind of check those off as the years pass by.
So that $50 million potential bond isn't the Cadillac package.
It would
a Cadillac package is 70 million.
It would be 70, but 50 would knock out so much. Even the 40 or 30, it would take care of a lot. It put us in a really nice position in Inglewood to have good amenities, really nice parks. Miller Field down the street, if you've been by there, that's one of the parks that is not used very often, doesn't have a lot of amenities for our residents to utilize other than open space. And what we're proposing there is really exciting with a splash pad and a pavilion and really ways to activate that park all hours of the day. So we're excited for it. Council will see it on March 4th again with a few tweaks, but.
Okay, thanks. And this isn't really going, I guess, to the capital projects, but, and I know like Choose has been here for several years now, but do you all see like differences with, you know, as like Choose offers a deal or Planet Fitness, which, you know, and I know Littleton, but just down the road. I mean, do you see a difference in take on at the rec center or anything like that?
Yeah, you want to answer that? You've looked at it quite thoroughly.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Colorado is it's a very active state and there's a lot of different places where people can go to work out. If you look at the recreation center, it's more of a full service place to where we don't just have fitness classes like Choose and Planet Fitness has. We've got other programming. We have dance classes for the toddlers. We have got more learn to swim classes than what the Choose and those have to offer. We're also, we try to track attendance pretty close, and we've had more people attend the rec center than, this was the highest attended year of people coming through the rec center. So we know we're doing good. It's just to stay in the forefront, to continue to market the programs, and we'll be good. So that's kind of what the difference is between Choose and then Planet Fitness and the rec center. We have a full gymnasium, to where, there's amenities that we have that those other ones can't compete with us.
Yeah, it's not.
They have a 2 or 3 lane pool. We have an 8 lane pool. So that's a good thing about that one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's not an apples to apples kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Can we go back to the children's programs? I remember my first couple of years on the Budget Advisory Committee, which has been close to 10 years ago now. There was talk about, and I think they actually did cancel the summer program because there wasn't much attendance. So we've actively regrown that program from where it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and during COVID, actually, in 2020, that's the year I started here, there was a outreach of what do we do with our kids? Schools aren't in session, it's virtual. And at that time, we weren't sure, so we didn't launch any really big program, but we knew there was going to be a need moving forward. And so in 2022 is when we really started pushing for childcare programming. We'd love to get to a place where we have enough attendance to actually offer a childcare room so you can come work out and drop your kids off. We're not there yet. Not enough kids come in to actually pay a staff member to sit there all day long and wait for kids to show up. But our out of school time, so summer camps, holidays, we have some late night programs that you can drop your teens off at, have really increased. In fact, our library just held a program last Friday that had 26 teens, and 26 doesn't seem like a lot, but for teen programming, that's insane.
Yeah.
Our library has one of the best teen programs in the Front Range. In fact, Bemis just called and said, how do we get your teens to come to our programs? So it's recognizable in the Front Range with other libraries that our team, Miss Kimberly, is doing a wonderful job recruiting kids, and they feel safe in their space and they have a lot of fun. So yeah, our goal is that through the potential renovations we're going to do at the rec center is just really increase the want to go to the rec center for these teens and other kids. So. Any other questions or comments you may have?
Speaking of the library, I'm curious, and I know many of my fellow members here on this committee are passionate about accessibility of city services. And so I'm curious if you could speak to, what the library is doing in terms of people who speak other languages, people with different abilities, et cetera.
Well, what's great is we recently launched our volunteer program again this year, and we've had a really nice response to that. And so like individuals who may speak another language, we actually have a couple volunteers that we can call on if needed for like ESL type classes, for tech classes on how to use your phone or your computer, or Excel spreadsheets, whatever it may be. And so it's not all inclusive of all languages, mostly Spanish. And we actually just hired a new staff who started yesterday that's fully fluent in Spanish. So that's really helpful because we know we have quite a few Spanish speakers in our community. And then as far as accessibility, I mean, that's something we're in an older building if you're talking about just accessibility into it, but we're looking at different ways to accommodate some of the needs that our patrons have, whether they're the unhoused population or a single dad coming in with 2 little kids and what do I do with them, and I want to get them reading. And so our staff are really wonderful at asking those questions. That's part of the Ask a Librarian, the tracking of what questions we get asked, because it helps us move resources and services into those areas that maybe are highly asked about, that maybe we're not offering a current program, but we could. And the library does a lot of programming, all hours, 7 days a week, but we're finding that some of those programs that we've been offering for years are just not well attended any longer. And so we're transitioning those programs to be things that people are actually looking for.
And then one other question, kind of switching gears back over to parks. You've talked at length about the kind of success of the Bellevue Park and the farm and train and the accomplishment of replacing the train this last year. Would that bond measure include further improvements in the Bellevue Park? Like, I mean, the farm itself seems a little bit older and,
Yep.
A number of the physical infrastructure there as I've walked around and used the park seems like it's been there a while.
Yeah, that's definitely an aging park. It's loved literally to death. It's well attended, especially in the nicer weather. There's people always there. We've got the regional trail that passes through there as well, so it's a commuter trail for a lot of people. Yes, so that's one of the big ticket items on the potential bond. It's around $9 million to renovate not only the farm area, so brand new building. We'd love to have a classroom style, a gift shop, more ways to do educational programs at the farm. It works right now, but from an accessibility standpoint, we actually just got a grant for mats that can be placed if somebody is in a wheelchair and wants to go through the gravel to see the animals. And so some of those things would be addressed with the renovation. As a park as a whole, there's some accessibility points we need to look at as far as like by the softball field. If you park up top, what's the street right there? Inca. If you park on Inca, you can't get down to the softball field easily. And so we'd actually be adding pathways throughout the park. We have some infrastructure that's slowly failing because it's just old. And so addressing a lot of those items. That park is huge, so we're not going to be able to touch every corner of it, but we'll definitely be able to do a lot with the $9 million.
Any other questions, comments? Of course.
Could we go back to the capital trust fund slide? Of the capital projects that weren't of those funds that weren't expended this year, how much of those funds are expected to be expended in the coming years in 2024 or 2025?
There's a number of them. That's the project that we're doing right now as staff are going through the needs that we need to do to earmark those funds of how much it is going to be. A prime example of that one would be the fitness equipment. We've got quotes already come back to replace a number of the bicycles upstairs, to redoing a totally different one to where there's a virtual monitor there, so you can go take a run or take a walk through some park that's in New York or somewhere like that. So it's more of a virtual is what we're doing with that one. So those are things that we're going to be looking at. We're looking at Pilates, new reformers over at Malley and stuff. So those are some of the capital type things that we're looking at, that holding the staff more accountable to where, hey, put a figure down there and let's get some of this expanded and let's upgrade some of the equipment now.
Past budgeting practices have been new equipment, $45,000. Was it spent? No, it wasn't. Should it have been spent? Probably yes. So that's where Brad's working with the staff very closely to really lock into, this is what we're spending next year. This is what we're budgeting for. And yes, we might have some surprises. Here's a contingency fund for those sort of things. And so, yeah, getting more specific on those items is the goal for 2025 and beyond.
And there's some line items that we want to build up a little bit because it's a high ticket item. We have earmarked already for 2027 new high rate sand filters for the swimming pool. So that's one of the things that we know that our line item has right now doesn't have enough money to pay for that cost. So I think the cost for that's probably gonna be somewhere around $80,000, and there may be $30,000 in that fund. Right now we get just under $500,000 a year in CTF funds. So it's a good source that we have, that we were able to do some things with equipment that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
I also think that Parks and Rec and Finance can correct me, you have a lot of interesting encumbrances on your funding sources, relative to some departments. Like police, it's all general fund, but you get a little lottery money, you get a little county money, and all of them have different categories that you can spend in. CTF is that way too, right?
Yes, it is.
It's got to be spent on
Recreation, parks.
Yeah, Parks and Recreation, it cannot go, there's a little bit that could be done with maintenance as far as staffing goes, but it's pretty strict as far as how we spend it.
On capital.
On capital.
Yes, on capital items. And there's some commodities that we could purchase too, if we needed to, so.
It's nice, it takes the pressure off the general fund. I mean, when you have potentially $70 million in need, it doesn't really, but ultimately, yeah, these two trusts, the CTF and then the open space is saving grace to help parks stay up and recreation to stay up, and not have to come to the city constantly ask for funding for little things that pop up.
And a big piece of the CTF funds is, as you see on the slide there, is maintenance for Pirates Cove. You know, if we didn't have that CTF funding, Pirates Cove would be in worse shape than what it is right now.
In the past, we've done pretty well with grant funding as well, supplemental funding for projects. How did we fare in 2023 with grant funding?
Every grant we went for, I think we got. So we have the SCFD grant that we received about just under 28,000. And then we went for the 600,000 with Arapahoe County and received that as well. So we've had nice successes for all the grants that we've gone after.
And those are in addition to the lottery dollars and the county dollars?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And that there were Bronco funds too, right?
Right, we got those in 2022, which is just over $1 million. And so most of those funds have been expended at this point. I think we have 100,000 left that we're kind of playing with what we want to do with that final funding. But the majority of it went to the new train,
Yeah.
which is exciting.
Right.
That's the plan, I remember.
So similarly, I don't know if this question can even be answered. Of course, we looked at fund balances, but if we were to look at an income statement for Pirates Cove as an entity, Malley and or ERC as an entity, would those all be in the black by their own revenue and operations?
No,
We
Pirates
rely on
Cove is the
those.
only one that really comes close to operating in the black, but due to June last year, it operated in the red a little bit. I think we were down $30,000 in the red last year, which normally we're anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 in the black. but the rec center and Valley are highly subsidized.
We did talk a lot about the bond in our presentation. And even some like alternate means of funding, which may or may not be relevant or useful. But I would hope that we can focus some of that energy into making those profitable. I'm no expert, and I know you all know that, but I'll be interested to follow this.
Yeah,
And with respect to the bond, we have survey results.
correct.
right?
Yes.
So that can,
New ones from July.
oh, I don't know if they're new, but.
No, they're the same ones. We don't feel we need to go back and do another survey. We think just being a year out, that is going to probably be pretty close to what they were before.
I showed that it was 70% in favor.
How much?
70%.
Oh, 70.
Well, 75,
I was like 7.
Said 70%, well, let me be clear, it's 70%, the survey found that 70% of those surveyed were extremely likely to vote in a local bond measure for the proposed improvement.
That sounds
It was
higher than I remember.
Closer, it was
That's
closer
what
to,
we had in July.
okay. So 53% based off the survey that was done would vote yes. It was, and I think that was extremely likely, and then there was another category, and that probably got closer to that mark. The company that we used to do that survey, when I called and said we're postponing the bonds potentially to 2024, they said, oh, that's even better. Your survey results would have been more positive because it's a presidential election, and your voter turnout was, I think, 6,000 for a non-presidential year, and it was like 19,000 for a presidential election. And so it was a higher amount of voter turnout. So they were more confident actually going for the bond this year than last year.
And I know we've talked about this briefly before, but what is the reason that we have not split Pirates Cove off into its own enterprise fund?
It can't sustain itself, just the capital projects themselves, that it wouldn't work. A prime example would be this year, to where we had a cold year and just the money that came in and operating in the red, we wouldn't be able to sustain it because we rely heavily on the CTF funds in order for capital projects.
Okay, so that's it. It's primarily to access those types of funds, CTF.
Yes. If we did enterprise, we wouldn't have access to those funds.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes.
At the moment, how long would the property tax funded bond be in place for? The last one was what, 22 years or something?
20, yeah, and that's something we're looking at, between 20 and 25. Kevin, I think, said between 4% and 5% for the bonds that we'd be.
That's what the rates are right now.
And is the total valuation of the bond impacting on term? So if it was 30 million, not 50 million, would that change? Or if it was 70 million, not 30 million, would that change?
No, typically we'd stay in that 20 to 25 year range.
Thanks.
General obligation bonds.
And we're estimating 4% right now?
Between 4 and 5%.
I know we were talking, I mean, as we went down the path a little bit, like, is rec center and Valley Center, are they profitable? But traditionally, they never have been, right? I mean, this isn't anything new, right? I mean, they've always been, I think it's used as subsidized. And
Yes.
is that, and I know it's hard to compare, like when you have South Suburban next to us and comparing size, but I mean, is that standard, on how it works with other like communities, I guess,
For public parks and
Yeah.
public recreation facilities
It's always-
typically are in the red and
Yeah.
a lot is subsidized. You look at Denver, they're never in the black
Yeah.
with their facilities. When you look at just the facility costs and staffing those facilities,
Yeah.
Unless you want to be competitive, like Pirates Cove could be an enterprise fund if we raise rates significantly. But then the attendance would probably drop and it's not that large of a water park. So there's so many factors that go into that. And yeah, from public parks and recreation standpoint, unfortunately, cities end up subsidizing a lot of what goes on there, but as part of the quality of life of living in a city and providing that for your residents.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we weren't like going down a path of like, this is traditionally the way it's been. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I think our parks and rec are awesome. We have a great city and it's awesome to be outside here. I think it's exemplary. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. I love the rec center. And then we had a friend stay with us back in September for a week with her almost 2-year-old, and our house is not kid friendly. So she managed to visit Jason Park, Bertolo Park, Bellevue Park. I rode the train for the first time in 10 years. But without me even leading her, she volunteered, oh my gosh, your parks are so great. You have so many in such close proximity to your house. That's from someone from out of state.
That's awesome.
Yeah, every time I walk the track, I get a peeking in to see what the construction looks like.
Yeah, you can look into
When I'm in the asphalt courts, I'm like, what's going on in there? I wanna
Don't tell
see.
anybody.
This is one of the big factors in our budget, Parks and Rec in general. If you look at other municipalities near us, my parents live in Centennial, they're part of South Suburban, they're paying somewhere in the range of 8.5 mils just to have parks in their community. And we're covering this with general fund dollars. So that, we do a lot on the shoestring budget that we give you guys.
And we have dedicated staff. I've only been here 4 years, but we have so many staff who've been here 20 plus years, which goes into, I think, the way park maintenance is, the way our facilities are run. So it's definitely something to be proud of and excited for that people like to work here.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be wise to invest in keeping Miss Kimberly.
Uh-huh.
All right, anything else before we move on? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's see, so I think we're on to, so next
In one day.
meeting.
See you guys again.
Next couple meetings are going to be more exciting and some new stuff. So, and Nevan, is that right? Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, Nevan or Nevan, both are correct.
Okay. So this is kind of just general field. I won't spend a lot of time with everybody because I'm happy to meet for a cup of coffee or offline, but this is generally what we do. And then at the end of the year, end of the budget year, so I think it's August now, we'll have our, we'll prep as a team, and come up with our recommendations to council based on what we've heard. So when we start digging into like hearing about the challenges and what they need or what's gone well, that really helps us know kind of, we can agree or disagree with what they're saying, but that helps us kind of formulate what we want to do and kind of go back to our notes. So, and this was a biggie, especially with the bond that's coming up and stuff like that. But the next couple, is some new stuff, so it'll be good timing for that. So we have Public Works next month, which was rescheduled from this month, but starting to talk about the review of the sales and use tax is going to be a big one, because that's new. We've never done that before. That was an ask from council and something I think we all kind of wanted to be involved in too. So that should be kind of cool. And then as we get into, we're starting to get into SIP and the capital request projects, and that'll be good too. So city center redevelopment, I know was something we had asked last year to learn more about. So that will be, next several meetings should be pretty interesting and some new stuff, so.
Bill, I had a question on that last item there with the city center redevelopment. There'd been some discussion around putting an invitation out. I don't know if it would be accepted or welcomed, but to members of our kind of sister, I think it's commission or committee that's the downtown redevelopment. It's slipping my mind as to what they're not a committee, they're a commission or a
Association.
It's an
Yeah.
authority.
DDA.
Yeah, EDDA.
Yeah. You guys kind of, looking at some of that together, you mean?
I just thought it might add to the conversation to hear some, from their perspective, as well as the actual city staff that are doing that.
Yeah, I think that was part of the plan with the April 23rd meeting, wasn't it?
We can double check with.
But I think that was.
So I think that was part of the plan
Yeah.
to include.
Because you're right, that has come up before.
EDA.
Yeah, it says including EDDA
Yeah,
partnership.
But I think that was the hope with that one. Yeah.
March 26th looks like a big meeting. The committee might consider adding a second meeting to April, because that's a lot of content.
We have two in April, but yeah, Public Works takes their own meeting. And I think because all things sales and use tax is gonna take a lot of orientation. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah, third meeting.
the board is correct.
Yeah, maybe that's just, we just add that for members' choice for next month and see where we land. Because to that point, we also want to be mindful of time, like where because that could easily go for a long time and we don't want, everybody to stay late. So we'll have to, so maybe I'll say that out loud
So
to
do you
myself.
want
but
to schedule that now?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I don't want to be pushy, but yes. Just with the way that all of us have our own schedules that we try to coordinate, I think it'd be more efficient to get ahead of it and get it on the calendar now.
So as to continue to talk about the tax piece,
To split March 26th into 2 meetings and use this time now to figure out when we should schedule that second meeting.
yeah.
What do y'all think of accomplishing that right now? Peter?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's fine.
We can choose now.
Was Public Works and Finance next month? In
Yep.
addition to the tax piece?
Yep.
Okay,
So maybe we just do the tax piece by itself.
that would probably that makes sense. And then how is staff gonna help present to us about the tax? Like, has that been discussed at all, or do we know?
We've got an Excel spreadsheet, because of course, finance creates Excel spreadsheets. So we'll present that to you as well. But we want to run it through police and public works, just to make sure they feel comfortable with that, with the content that we're going to present to you.
Okay,
I think we were thinking of a format similar to kind of how the departments come in and present. Certainly you'll have the spreadsheet, but also have the 2 departments that oversee those funds, really lay out, here's when, how, and why we, spent what we spent.
yeah, okay,
That works.
yeah, that makes sense.
So I would think Public Works would be 1 meeting, and then Finance Department presentation and all things sales and use
All right,
tax.
I like that idea.
And tell me if I'm wrong, I think Finance presentation would be a nice segue into presenting all things sales and use tax to us.
I guess.
Fit nicely together, yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
And then, because March is kind of the prep for the tax piece, and then the 25th is really where we're digging in, right? In June, or I'm sorry, in June.
For our presentation.
Because I think part of it was just kind of a general understanding and kind of figure out like what we're gonna do with it, and then June continues that, because we do have that special meeting in June, or not a special meeting, but that meeting in June dedicated to the
Right,
tax.
so we'll have, the audit the financial audit should be completed by our June meeting, and then you'll be reviewing that spreadsheet that as City Manager Lewis mentioned. It will have the content of, what police had envisioned
Yeah.
for the programs that are being covered by the dedicated sales and use tax piece. Same with Public Works.
And the April 22nd meeting is the council meeting, right?
Correct, that's the joint
That we've
council
been
meeting.
invited, so.
So you'll
Just
have
for
back-to-back
background,
meetings.
some folks can join online. It's a long night. I mean, long for these folks, much more than us, but, people have joined online or in person, and that's always very helpful. But that's separate from this committee meeting, just calling that out. And then April 23rd would be our regular meeting. So we could either, I don't know if we want a 3rd meeting in April then, or otherwise it'd be, I guess, in the next couple weeks, which I don't know how that would work either.
15.
Because it also depends on staff availability.
Right.
Yeah. I was trying to think out loud, like at first, if we were gonna, like, could we put Public Works somewhere else in one of the dates already that we might have time for, but I don't know, looking at this, if we do.
I look at Public Works the same way that I look at utilities in South Platte Renew. Like, they have a lot to cover. And especially because our capital improvement discussion is so heavily dependent on that Public Works presentation.
Yeah.
I think they need their own meeting, but I don't feel strongly about protecting
So do we want to shoot for maybe earlier in April then?
Sounds good.
I mean, depending on staff availability and such.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 weeks off, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, maybe just let us know what you,
So you're thinking the 9th?
it could be just early, like early in April.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you have this April 2nd, April 9th, or April 16th? We keep to Tuesdays.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be fine with me any of those. I mean, maybe see how it works for staff and such.
I mean, we'll make it work.
Okay.
It's really
Okay,
up to you.
what do we want to shoot for the 9th? That kind of gives a break, a little bit of a break in between meetings.
Let's do it.
Okay.
That'll be sales and use and finance, or finance and sales and use.
That'll be Public Works.
So that'll
Oh, no, yeah, that'll be Public Works. And then our March meeting will be focused on finance and talking about the tax stuff. And then April 23rd would be a regular meeting on City Center.
So in the event we have an issue with Public Works, we'll double check with Public Works, but if they cannot meet the April meeting, is it okay to keep them on March? Okay, if not, we'll go finance and then Public Works. That's our first choice. Second choice would be Public Works and finance.
Sounds good?
Okay.
All right, anything else for members' choice? I guess that was not members' choice, but now opening up for members' choice. Anything from anybody? All right, well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll be talking a lot soon, I guess, over the next couple months.
I'm glad we like each other.
Put a exercise with the screen face size.